Ladies and gentlemen, how you guys doing today? Welcome to Front Row with Jelani Stokes. Oh, I'm great. It's great to be here today, and I'm just happy that you guys are once again hanging out with me on this Tuesday evening. And once again, I just want to let you guys know that we have Front Row every Tuesday at 6 p.m. We'll say that again. Every Tuesday at 6 p.m., we do Front Row Hear It with Jelani Stokes. And remember, I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday talking about some of your favorite songs. I just released a few good ones this week. I think yesterday I released one on Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, that brother was bad on the guitar. Gotta say that. So check that one out. I think you guys will enjoy that one. Okay. And then remember, if you guys have any questions that you want answered directly on this show live, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go to Ask Jelani Stokes at gmail.com. Again, that's Ask Jelani Stokes at gmail.com. Yes. All right. So now that I got all that advertising out of the way, I'm going to go to one of my all-time favorite segments that I love to talk about. This one I like to call, well, I want you to know what's going on in my life right now. Well, at this point, I got to tell you this. First off, I got to give a shout out to my girls working on the Black Performer program. They told me to give them a shout out. So now they know they can't bug me all the time. But I love that they bug me because they are just so motivated to do the best job they can. So shout out to them. All right. I'm gonna be honest. I These last couple weeks have been very difficult for me. I've been working on a lot of projects with my students, and let's just say, in life, a lot of things never go the way you want them to go. And I'm gonna tell you, this is no exception. And I've really struggled with a lot of this. But what keeps me going is my family and then the students. When they come to me and they're excited to do these projects and these programs, it just makes me want to just get up and try even harder. So, things will get better. I'm looking forward to it. And, I'm still happy, still love what I do. And that's pretty much what's been going on with me at this moment. So, but I'm good and I'm happy to be here. And I've got a interesting topic I'm going to tell you. So today, our topic is, and I'm going to say this first off, obviously, you know what the topic is. And because I put the link up there, so you already know what's coming up. But I have to kind of talk about this first before I can go into the list. First off, I found this list. I went to a wedding with my wife from one of her former coworkers, and while I was on my phone, I was kind of getting some things together. I found this list. I found this blog that talked about the 10 best singers of all time, and I said, "All right, let me check this out." Oh, I know this is gonna start some stuff. So I looked at it, and I was like, "Okay, I have to go through this on the show this Tuesday." So I'm going to break it apart and I'm going to talk about things I agree with, things I disagree with, and why I would never make a list like this. Okay. So I'm going to start off. I made a nice little special video that I'm just going to announce the 10 and then we're going to talk about each of them, one at a time. So here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, these are the top 10 best singers of all time as featured from this website, ledgernote.com's blog. Here we go. Number 10, James Brown, the godfather of soul, ladies and gentlemen. That man was a bad boy. He could put on a real great performance. Number 9, Steve Perry. Ladies and gentlemen, from his work on Journey. I love that song. You know everybody sings that one in the bar, okay? All right, Paul McCartney, Sir Paul McCartney. He's more than just a Beatle, ladies and gentlemen. He is Sir Paul McCartney, bringing it just like every day. Ladies and gentlemen, number 7, Aretha Franklin. Oh my, with the respect and the Queen of Soul. She had a voice like no other. Number 6, Mr. Frank Sinatra. Oh man, blue eyes, leader of the Rat Pack, and just had a voice that could just make anybody swoon. Number 5, Ella Fitzgerald. Whoo, the first lady of song. I'm telling you, this woman put a lot of people on notice. Here we go. All right. Number 4, Mr. Freddie Mercury. Oh my, the Queen legend himself. Whoo, this boy could go, and I'm telling you, he had power unlike no other. Oh, my favorite, Mr. Marvin Gaye. Oh man, the Prince of Motown, Prince of Soul. He really is one of my top ones of all time. All right, here we go. Number 2, Mr. Stevie Wonder. Oh man, this boy could sing and he could write. Has some of the greatest music, some of my favorites of all time. And ladies and gentlemen, Michael Jackson is listed as number 1 by this list. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about this list. And first, let me tell you why I would never do a list like this. To me, singing is like apples and oranges. We always have that phrase about apples and oranges because how can you quantify who's the best singer when there's so many different types of voice types, timbres, voice designations, meaning soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and there's so many phenomenal vocalists who have been huge stars, and not even to mention there are some phenomenal vocalists who have never been discovered. I'm gonna tell you, there was this girl I knew in college, and she had one of the best voices I've ever heard in my life. And she had a great look. And I never understood why nobody was, because I think she went out for American Idol and she never got past the producers. I'm like, so I remember that, and that made me not like American Idol because of that, just that alone. But I think it's super hard because there's so many talented individuals and so many just amazing vocalists out there that how can you quantify it into a list of 10? If I had a top 10, I would just say top 10. I would never rank them. I would just say these are my top 10. And people ask me all the time, said, Miss, my students ask like, Mr. Stokes, what's your favorite song or who's your favorite artist? I said, I can't tell you because I like too many people. I love too many of these artists. They're just that phenomenal. And I can't put them into quantification because each of them brings something different to the table. So that's why I couldn't do it. But when I saw this list, I said, oh, I could pick this apart. Okay. So let's go back to the beginning and we're going to start again. And you know what? Let's do a two screen right like this. So that way you guys can see myself and you can see the list. And let's see how we can make this happen. All right. We're gonna pause it right there. Let's see if we can do this. Oh, yeah. See, I like that. Get the nice shot of me and you get the shot of over there. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna start with Mr. James Brown. Now, here's my thing with James Brown. James Brown, no doubt, is a pioneer and is a trendsetter in music, particularly funk music. He really, really brought the idea of the one and always finding the one. It's what he would tell Bootsy Collins when he was playing in his band. You got to find the one. And his singing almost was kind of like a pre-rap because towards the end he really didn't do a lot of singing. It was more of kind of like my father would call it character vocalist, and he would just kind of like you know rhythmically sing to the music like do a lot of that. But to me he didn't do a lot of singing. He had a phenomenal voice. Now, I'm gonna tell you, listen to A Man's World, that man is can go. But as far as in a pure vocalist term, as we're thinking about it, I could not put him on the top 10. As a pioneer and as somebody who opened doors for lots of people, absolutely. As somebody who is a top 10 vocalist, I couldn't do it. So that's Mr. James Brown right there. So we're gonna keep it going. And I like I said, he's one of my favorites, definitely a pioneer. Now, going to number 9, we got Steve Perry. Now, I'm gonna be frank and I'm gonna be honest. I'm not as familiar with Steve Perry because the only one the only song I really know is The Journey Don't Stop, which is like, oh man, that is a bar staple. When I was in my band, the Johnson Treatment, we would play that and the crowd would just start singing. But being able to listen to that song, I could already recognize the talent and what he was able to do with just that song. So anybody watching, if you're Steve Perry fans and you have Okay, so that was some music that I was not expecting, but that came from the website that I was looking at. So I apologize. So that's the great thing with live TV. Anything can happen. Yeah. But with Steve Perry, as I said, I'm not as familiar with his rep and what he's done. So for me, I'm not gonna say he doesn't belong in here because for me, that's kind of more of let me discover more on Steve Perry. But based on that one song, I would definitely say he has the potential to stay and be on this list. Okay, so number 8. This is the one I have the most trouble with. Mr. Paul McCartney. Now, let me tell you this. This man is a great songwriter. He is a legend. And I'm going to tell you on some of these songs on the Beatles, this man can go. Hey Jude, Oh Darling by the Beatles. Maybe I'm amazed. I mean, whoo, you can feel it. And he is really singing these songs full from the heart, and you can feel it. But from a vocal standpoint, if we're talking just vocally, to me, there's too many other vocalists who are too well versed vocally to not be in that spot or at least have a spot in the top 10. I felt like, and I talk about this in some of my videos, for a lot of music, you have two types of songs. You have a song which is the singer is part of the overall collective. The singing makes the song complete. And then you have other songs where the music is subservient. It's basically the background to let the vocalist shine. Okay. And I felt like with Paul, a lot of those songs were the former. You know, they he it kind of completed the song he was doing. Okay, so great artist. I'm a huge Paul McCartney fan, but I don't know if I can keep him on this list at number 8. Definitely not a number 8. He would have to go down. All right. Next, Aretha Franklin. Okay, to me, this is no clue. I mean, this is a no-brainer. She's on this list. This woman can go. Okay. And I'm going to say that again a lot. When I say someone can go, that means they can put on a show and they can do it with the best of them. Okay. You know, I would have these conversations with my father, who's a musician, a singer. And one thing we would always say about certain vocalists is that can you go on stage and just sing and have the crowd be satiated by just your voice? If you can do that, then you have a unique talent. And Aretha was always someone who could just go on the stage and just sing and didn't have to have the flash or the choreography or anything else. So I might even say she's a little low on this list at number 7, but she definitely belongs on this list in my view. Moving on, we're going on to Frank Sinatra. Now, a lot of people say, "Well, how can Frank be on that list? He's not an Aretha. He's not a Steve Perry. He's not any." Yeah, you're right. But see, Frank had this. Frank had a very powerful voice. People don't really realize that. And but the one thing he did, he had such a control. And one of the things I love about Frank Sinatra and his style is he was the king of singing behind the beat. Now, what that means is, like when you're singing and you've got a pulse, you usually want to stay with the pulse. You don't want to go too fast and rush it, or you don't want to drag and go too slow. But there's kind of like this wiggle room in between within the pulse, where if you're a little above it, you're kind of just a little bit, going leading the tempo just a little bit, but you're still with it. Or you're kind of singing behind, you're singing behind the pocket just a little bit. And Frank Sinatra was the king of just singing behind the pocket and just had this cool, smooth voice when you would hear him. I mean, he was the king. People don't even realize this. He was a teen idol, this thin person. When I would watch Looney Tunes, and I'm talking old Looney Tunes when I was a little kid, they were always these parodies of this skinny guy who could sing in it, and you saw the characters, all the girl characters go crazy, like, "Oh, Frankie!" And they would all faint. I was like, who is this guy? And then one day I was like, wow, that's Frank Sinatra. They're doing him. So he and And the longevity he had within the business, to me, allows him to have a spot right there. Little, skinny Frankie right there deserves a spot on my list. All right, number 5, Ella Fitzgerald. Oh man, yes, you have to have Ella Fitzgerald on here. I mean, she opened the doors for all of these other vocalists, especially female vocalists, to come through. Some of her jazz recordings, and the fact of scatting. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with scatting, scatting is singing but using indescript valves, almost like a horn, and just kind of singing off the cup of your head. Now, I'm gonna tell you, that's a very, 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 very hard thing to do. Unlike a piano, unlike a horn, unlike even somewhat a guitar, a voice has so it's there is no set key. There is no, like, I can't press a C on my piano and on my voice. I can't do that. Like, I can't press something on my voice and I automatically sing a C. I can't press something else, automatically sing a D. You really have to have very sharp ears and a very, very good control of your voice to be able to scat and stay in tune. She was one of the best. And I really think she opened the doors and inspired a lot of the vocalists that we've heard from the previous generation. And then that generation went ahead and they influenced the current generation. Yes, her voice is. So I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna put your comments up here. So if you got any questions, let's rap about this, because I'm gonna tell you, I might have to, we may have some real good debates on this one, but we're gonna keep that going. So Ella's number 5. Okay. The next one on the list after Miss Ella Fitzgerald is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Freddie Mercury of Queen. This whoo, this man has such a powerful voice. My God. Okay. All I gotta say is innuendo. And for those people, when I first started doing my videos, were always asking me to do innuendo video. And let me explain something to you. The performance he gave on that last album with Queen, when he was literally terminally ill and unable, and the power to come out of that voice was unbelievable. This was basically the model of what you really wanted a rock singer to be. But then he had these classical sensibilities where he had the natural vibrato to go with the rock singing. So he's not just screaming, that's pure voice. You got other people, they're just screamers. And, that's cool, but we're talking vocal ability. And he had so much versatility within Queen. Go watch my Queen videos. The one thing I always talk about is that they are the chameleons within music. They were able to do everything and make it sound right. Same thing with Freddie. He was able to mold his style to all of what Queen was able to do. So he is absolutely one of the greatest vocalists out there. Okay. I have to say that, and his work speaks for itself. Okay. Now, number 3. This is my personal favorite, Mr. Marvin Gaye. I'm going to do a video on Marvin Gaye because to me, Marvin Gaye in his life is, oh my God, is absolutely fascinating to talk about Marvin. When you are singing a song and you go into the studio to record, basically, when you write a song, you sing a song, you're telling a story. You're always telling a story with your songs, but instead of just reciting it, you're singing it. Most people, when they sing, they're worried about their voice quality, how they sound, or do I sound good? Am I doing this or that? Marvin Gaye is probably the one artist that I've ever listened to that I would feel every word he was singing. He admits so much emotion through his voice. It's absolutely remarkable. I mean, I can listen to stuff I normally wouldn't listen to, but if he's singing it, I'm feeling it. And I really think this is due to the life that he had. I'm gonna tell you, this man lived a hard life. He struggled a lot, okay? And for those of you who are not familiar, there's even some speculation that most of you know, whoever of that age, that Marvin Gaye was killed by his father. But what you may not know is that some people in his family think that was planned, meaning he knew exactly what he was doing when the whole confrontation with his father happened, and it was almost like an assisted suicide because he did try to commit suicide a few times before in the past. So he was a very troubled soul, and I believe that really gave him something extra in his voice that, had he not had that life, would have never been there. So listen to some of his stuff. I mean, I'm gonna tell you one song that is so underrated, and go look it up, is his cover of Yesterday. This was recorded right before What's Going On. When I heard this, I almost had tears because it was just so powerful, and I could just feel everything this man was saying. Okay. And then also, who are the two national anthems everybody always talks about? Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye. Enough said. Okay. So he's my personal favorite. And trust me, I will be talking more about Marvin Gaye because vocally, um, incredible, incredible, incredible. All right, on this list, they came with number 2, Mr. Stevie Wonder. Now, let me tell you this. I struggle with this one. Yeah, I tell you, you will not regret that. I'm gonna tell you, you will not regret it. It's amazing. Um, I struggle with this one. And here's the funniest thing. Stevie Wonder is one of my all-time favorite artists. And there's no doubt I would definitely put him on this list because I remember in college when I was taking voice lessons, my voice instructor would always talk about Stevie Wonder's technique and how much pressure he would have to belt out those high notes. And he's right. When you're singing, the one thing that I try to tell my students is the breath powers the voice. Okay. If you don't have breath, if you don't have enough breath behind your voice, it's not going to project as well as you want it to. And that's where cracks happen. So the more you're able to control that breath pressure, the more control vocally you'll have. He has so much pressure. He's literally sitting on like this ball, this huge big ball balloon, and he's able to really control and and really manage that breath to really kick out those super high notes with such power and velocity. It's unbelievable. And he has such an agility with his voice that's just, oh my god, it's unbelievable. If you listen to his classic period from Music on My Mind, Talking Book, Inner Visions, Fulfilling This First Finale, Songs in the Key of Life, go listen to those 5 albums. You will hear some of the most remarkable singing and performances ever right there. I think he's a little high at number 2. Personally, if I were just going vocally, I think for me, when I hear Stevie, I don't think vocalist. I think a musician. I think of someone who's using all of his talents to create the whole. Going back to what I was saying, his songs and his singing melded in with the overall whole of the music. Where if you get someone like an Aretha or an Ella, you got the music kind of being the pad. But he could do the other side. He could do the latter. He could do the songs that were just a pad and just for and just feature his voice. But at that time, between those 5 classic albums, he was so immersed in the overall musical picture. So sometimes the song is so sometimes the song was more important than what he was doing vocally. If he got what he needed musically, vocally, then he was cool. He didn't need to do no more. Okay. I think it's to answer your question. So is singing Is singing talent learned, gifted, or both? I think it's both. Um, all of these individuals that I've listed had natural ability, but they worked their behinds off to refine it and to master it. And it's a lot of work. I'm always of the belief that anybody can sing. Yes, I said it. Anybody. And yes, I will fight people over that. Okay. Anybody can sing. But here's the difference: not everybody wants to work that hard to develop their own voice. So you've got to be willing to work on what is you to get the best of what's in you. That's my 2 cents. Okay. So Stevie Wonder's number two. Once again, I think he's a little high, but because based on how he came about it musically singing, I think there's some others who get featured more that should be a little bit higher. And then number one, I can't believe I'm going to say this, 'cause he this is my all probably my all-time favorite artist. I mean, I've got videos of when I'm 4 and 3 years old, and I'm spinning around, and I'm wearing Michael Jackson get up, and I'm, doing the moonwalk and all that stuff, and I'm gonna tell you, Michael Jackson is a huge part of my life. Huge. I mean, whoo, musically. To me right now, there's no way he's number 1. I I could not put him number 1. Now, let me say this. I'm doing another artist spotlight, and I'm going to talk about this. There was a period in Michael's life where I will say he probably nobody could touch him vocally, and that was probably between the years of 73, I think when he was about 14, 15, to probably 87 to about 29, right before he hit bad. Those years, vocally, he was so gifted. That boy was bad. He had such a control over his voice that he could sing and I mean, this man could sing anything, anything, and make it work. And go look up anything from the Jackson 5 or the Jacksons and watch it and listen to him sing. It's so beautiful. He had such control of his voice. That's why Off the Wall is one of my all-time favorite albums, because it really literally well, hey, awesome. Well, hey, then I'm great minds think alike, and I have to say, you're on a roll. Just got to look out that ninth one or that one that you're missing. So, um, yeah, you can't go wrong with these artists. But with Michael, he had such a control over his voice between that 73 period and then the Thriller era. I think what happened to me before he was Little Michael Jackson, and I don't necessarily count that. He had a great voice, but he was Little Michael Jackson. It was more of a novelty of anything. And then once he got to Bad, to me, he ended up turning into the Michael Jackson who had basically two vocal versions of himself. Scream Michael Jackson and very high vibrato, I'm trying to sing soft Michael Jackson. There was no wiggle room anymore. Like when he was younger and he was, like I said, in that I call it that prime era, he could easily, navigate between both worlds super easily. He can go really aggressive, but then bring it back. But you never felt a tone shift. You never felt like a tone, like we call it. Okay, here's an example. For anybody who's tried to sing out there, I don't know, anybody want to put their hand up? It's okay. I won't say nothing. If you ever tried to sing and then you ever cracked your voice. A lot of times when your voice cracks, that's what we call our break. There are two types of voice. We have our chest voice, and we have our head voice. For men, it's called a falsetto. And there is a point in everybody where our voices hit that transition period or that point. And that's called our break. And that's usually the most difficult part of our range because you either either have to belt it out or you have to get a very weak voice because it's at the lower part of your falsetto or head voice. He had like it wasn't necessarily a break, but you could tell it was a completely different voice. There was no fluidity, there was no agility to it. So after Bad, that's kind of where he got that. And I was like, man, he kind of lost what he had. But go check out Michael Jackson. So here's what you need to check out from 1973 with the Jacksons and the Jackson 5, and then his first 2 albums. Well, not well, his first 2 real solo albums, I have to say that. Off the Wall, and to a lesser extent Thriller, but really Off the Wall. Listen to this man. He could go, okay? So, that's the list that they gave out. Now, here's some people that they gave, honorable mentions to. Sam Cooke, who, man, I'm gonna tell you, he should have been on this list, and I would put him over Paul McCartney. A change is gonna come. If you've ever heard that song, if you haven't, I would not be mad at you right now if you got off this live right now and you wouldn't listen to it. It gives me chills every time I hear that song and the way he sang it for many reasons. One, he recorded it and it didn't get released till after he passed. So it's almost a haunting song. And he sings it with just such emotion. And he's talking about a change that's going to come in the civil rights, era. And he's right, and he's really kind of drawing the picture and the pain that the people are going through during that time. Oh my, it's an unbelievable performance. And I think that alone would give him a great reason to be on this list. Okay. The next one was Mariah Carey. Now, let me say this. The reason I put Mariah on here is because she has what we call that whistle register. She can sing really high. That like yeah, everybody tries to do that Mariah Carey note and but having a whistle register and having a great control over her voice, she has a fantastic voice. I think gives an argument that she could be on this list. Okay. Um, Now and then we also got to deal with her Christmas song every holiday. But you know what? I can't be mad at her because she's making money off of that. Okay. Another one of the honorable mentions was Miss Whitney Houston. I think Whitney could be on here over some of the other ones. I mean, that's why I said this list is hard. As I said earlier, there's two national anthems that we always talk about: Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye. That's it. And how many national anthems have been sung in huge moments throughout all the years? And those are the two that always come to the top. I could talk about Whitney too. I can go and her life's a little tragic too. I think she's a little bit misunderstood as well, but she had a God gifted voice. And one of my favorite songs by her, and I did a video on this, is Saving All My Love for You. And I loved how they produced her because Clive Davis at the time was trying to get the best pop performance out of her. She had to do multiple takes of that song because she would get too, as he would call it, urban. Like she would just go too far with it. He's like, let's bring it back. And I think when they did that, they got the perfect performance out of it. It's my favorite Whitney Houston song. So I definitely think she is on this list. Now, those were the most of them. Now, there's this man, Mr. Ronald Isley. This is one of my picks. And I'm going to tell you why. If you guys are familiar with the Isley brothers, um, one of the only groups to have hit records in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Same group, the Isley brothers with Ronald Isley. Ronald Isley's is one of the greatest vocalists to me, and this is the reason, because his voice is so unique. It's literally like nobody else's voice. When you listen to Ronald Isley, you know it's Ronald Isley, and he has such a control over his voice. And when you hear him sing, you believe everything he's singing. And if you think about their hits, I mean, this was the group that came out with Shout. This is the group that came out with It's Your Thing. Who's That Lady? They did a huge major cover of Summer Breeze. For the Lover in You. No, I'm sorry, that's Shalimar. It's For the Love of You, I believe. Let me make sure get that checked because that's gonna bother me if I get it wrong. But This song that was on, I forget which album it was on. Let me find it real quick because I'm one of these kind of guys like this is gonna bother me if I don't feel okay. On this album called The Heat Is On, go check this out. Their major hit was For the Love of You. Okay. And this is how great Ronald Isley was. He did that whole song in one take. One. How story goes, he did it in one take and it was perfect. And then the engineer, somebody completely erased the original take. And I'm telling you, I've had that happen. And that's when I have to go step away and go have a good cry. But then he did it again, one take. So this man, go listen to Ronald Isley. Okay. And I will guarantee that he is one. I'm underrated as a vocalist by far. Underrated as a vocalist. So that's my 2 cents with that. There's so many other people. I mean, and I think there's so many different artists that can make arguments. I mean, you could talk about Al Green, you could talk about Luther Vandross, you could talk about I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, I'll tell you one person who comes to my mind at this moment, um, from the Temptations. And if you're not a Temptations fan, go look this guy up. My favorite lead singer, Ollie Woodson, he joined the group in 1983 and had a hit with them called Treat Her Like a Lady. He's the best vocalist because if you ever get into the Temptations, they had the David Ruffin era and they had the Dennis Edwards during the classic period. Whenever they would, excuse me, whenever they would, get new people, especially Dennis. Dennis could never sing the soft, tender stuff of David Ruffin, which at that point would either be given to Paul Williams or Richard Street when Richard Street replaced Paul Williams, because Dennis Edwards was a screamer. So for years, Richard Street would always sing "My Girl" because that was a tender song. When Ali got in the group, he sang "My Girl" and sang Dennis's stuff. Just think about that. The fact that he was able to do both, and this man was cold-blooded as a vocalist, and I guarantee had he had a bigger role in the Temptations and not joined them after their heyday run, he could make a run on this list. He was that talented and he was that cold-blooded. There's so many people. That's why I think this is apples and oranges. I think you have to figure out the style that you're looking for, and I think you have to really get some parameters as to what you're looking for. Because, like I said with Stevie Wonder, I think he could easily be up there. But to me, the singing was only another instrument part of his overall composition versus really focusing and featuring his singing. Whereas you got people like Aretha Franklin and Whitney Houston and Ella Fitzgerald, and those are individuals who their job was to sing, and the band was supposed to support and back them up. So that's the list. And that's my thought on the list. And I wanted to bring this to you guys because I felt like, man, this was just a great topic to talk about. And, I'm going to talk about some more because I'm going to go into the best, top 10 bass players. And I'm going to tell you, there's some people on there I got to fight with because they left off some of my favorites. So that's the list. And at this moment, any quick questions? I got some people here, and it's so good to see you guys. And thank you for your support and you guys just being here and just supporting and hanging out because I enjoy just kind of getting some of this stuff off my chest. Because I'm telling you, some of these lists, it's just like, wow, mm, I be ready to fight some people over some of these things. But let me see some other people. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some other vocalists that I really wanna kind of figure out what they, belong on this list. There's a lot of to me, a lot of, groups. singing groups who had their lead singers. Some of those lead singers could be on this group. I mean, on this list. She absolutely did. I think that is absolutely correct. Um, she was another one who was really able to kind of sing around the pocket like um Frank Sinatra would. But I think but where Frank was always trying to be cool with it, and he would just kind of, sing behind the beat a little bit, she was able to kind of go forward, go hit beyond the pocket and behind it. And then her scatting, oh my, her scatting is unbelievable for somebody to just riff off the top of their head, be in tune, and just make it unbelievable. She literally had her voice as an instrument. Now keep that in mind, and I really mean an instrument. You know what? To me, there are people who are great songwriters. Now, I try never on my page, I keep it positive. I like to keep it light. I don't like to disparage anybody because everybody's out there for a reason. Bob Dylan, I believe, was a great storyteller, and I'm gonna leave it at that, and there's other people's voices. I'm gonna tell you, mm, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, how did you get to that position? Mm, you know, and 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 that actually gets to another topic. I did this on my previous live show, and I may bring this back. The difference between singing, in the previous era and singing today, and there's a lot. There's a big difference, and I've got some issues, and I've got some words and thoughts for today's artist. I read an article, over the weekend that talked about auto-tune, and I'm gonna tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with auto-tune. And a lot, what was being said was auto-tune was really introduced as a cost-cutting measure in the studio because studio time is money. And if any of you ever been in the studio, it's expensive and you better be ready to go. So it was really a way to tune people up without having them redo takes over and over and over again. But then they overdid it. And then I'll never forget, I was watching a Guitar Center commercial, and this lady literally say, "Auto tune to help me sing." I was disgusted. As a vocal major, I'm like, really? Because to me, it just demeans what we do and the work that has to go into singing. I tell my students, singing is a full body activity from your head all the way down to your toes. You need your whole body to be engaged to have really good control over what you're doing vocally. And to say, all you need is auto tune to sound good. I'm like, my. Now, I'm not going to lie, auto tune used correctly can be. I think auto-tune used correctly can be an aid. I think it could be a sound effect that's cool, like T-Pain, but just to say that's it, yeah. The first one was Michael Jackson, which, as I was saying earlier, that I was had a huge amount of conflict with that because Michael Jackson, if I had to pick one person as my favorite all-time artist, which is ridiculously hard, he would probably edge out a lot of them. But vocally, over some of these other ones, I could not. Now, and the reason is, and I'll kind of cap this, is because he had a prime period vocally between 1973 and about 1987, right before Bad. Um, that point, he could not be touched vocally. I always say, right, the Michael Jackson we know of after Bad and Dangerous, he had two modes: scream or try to sing soft with heavy, heavy vibrato. Okay, that was it. In those prime years, he was able to easily flow between both and still keep the same quality that he always had. Now, if you're talking that Michael Jackson, you might have an argument. but if that wasn't him throughout the entire time, because you can't go little Michael Jackson, although he can go. To me, that was a novelty. He could sing, but you're hearing him, but it's still the fact that he's a little kid, which, and then that, to me, young boys singing to me almost is a disqualifier because our voice change is so drastic that can they still make it happen once they have a voice change? But and then afterwards he just screamed or tried to sing soft. So Michael Jackson. You know what? You're right. I do believe it's probably going to be the same because to me there's nobody really trying to sing. And everything to me is producer driven vocally. I don't you don't hear you hear a lot of these singer-songwriter types where they're not really trying to tell a story. They're they're trying to sound pretty. I mean, I'm sorry, it goes back to my favorite one, and I'm gonna put him back up here, and I'm gonna go back to my favorite one right now, Mr. Marvin Gaye. He didn't care if he sounded good. He sang what he felt. And I think that's the problem, and not a problem, bad choice of words. I think that's where the shift happened. People started to the goal was to sound pretty and to sound pleasant when you sing versus telling a story vocally. And if you listen, I can't think of anybody who I've heard within the last 25, 30 years. I'll say maybe one or two. But even then, those who, when I heard them sing, I could feel it to my soul. And I'm gonna tell you the real culprits, the real, people who really affected this change came more from a male perspective than a woman perspective. I think the girls, the ladies can still sing. I think Beyonce can go. Mary J. Blige can go. Lady Gaga can go. I mean, Christina Aguilera, when she's not trying to run all over the place, she can go. Okay. But the gentleman, if I really talked about this, we'd be on here for about another hour and a half about my feelings on this subject. My father always taught me when I was growing up, sing with authority, sing like you mean it. I think too many people, too many guys are trying to sound pretty. And then you got into the whole rapper sing concept where you got people who they'll sing and they'll I consider it rapping in tune. They're not really singing, they're rapping in tune. So basically their rap just matches the key that they're singing in. They're not really singing. You don't really have the powerful vocalist that you had in the past. Like, oh, I just thought of one, Teddy Pendergrass. You don't have the Teddy Pendergrasses. You don't have the Marvin Gayes. You don't have the Luthers. You don't have the Sam Cooks. You don't have any of these people who sang. And I mean, they made you feel it. No, it's about sounding pretty. It's about trying to look cool. It's about an image. So let's get the image right. Go listen to Marvin Gaye. Oh yeah, George Benson was bad. He was a really. What I'm gonna tell you what I loved about George Benson. George Benson, the fact that he was able to scat along with what he was playing guitar to, just signified how much of a symbolic relationship he had with his instrument. Truly, to me, I think of that's how I think of George Benson. It's like his voice and his guitar were one. Like where one would go off and he would play guitar, and then he would scat with one and he would go into a guitar solo. So to me, that was the overall package. But yeah, George Benson definitely, I mean, he would surprise you with how good of a voice he was. I mean, he had or he has, sorry, past tense. He's still with us, ladies and gentlemen. You can go see him. But yes, he definitely thinks surprised some people because to me, when I think George Benson, I think guitar first as a great guitar player and then as a vocalist. But there was a lot of songs where he didn't play, someone else produced the album or the song, and he just sang it. So yeah, George Benson was a great one. I'm trying to think, is there anybody else? There's lots of people I could tell you. Um, Prince to me is underrated, but once again, I think Prince would qualify under the music category of being somebody who um would sing as part of the overall picture more than here's somebody right here. I'll tell you another one. For those of you who are familiar with Johnny Gill. Now, here's my thing with Johnny Gill. I love Johnny Gill, but I feel like if where I'm talking about current artists who may not go, you know, really sing, I felt like sometimes he sang too much. Like he put too much into what he was doing. If you go listen to the song "Can You Stand in the Rain" by New Edition, that was probably the perfect way he was used. And Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis really restricted what he could do right there. So I think he got him right. So, um, but I mean, there's so many, but I do believe that list does stand does hold up for the most part. Like I said, the only two people I would kind of switch out would be Sir Paul McCartney and James Brown, just because I felt like although they are amazing vocalists, their main contribution would be more towards the musical side. George Benson with the funk. I said George Benson. Wow, you got me saying George Benson now. James Brown with the funk, and Paul McCartney with just his overall songwriting and his contributions from the Beatles. And I probably would definitely put, at least not Aretha, but Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey, one of those two. And I would put in Sam Cooke. I mean, let's give Sam Cooke some love. So, all right. Well, that will wrap up our edition of Front Row with Jelani Stokes. I'm going to tell you again, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun today. I'm going to tell you, I enjoy these conversations because, it's something where we can really kind of have a discussion. I love discussions. I'm always going through these things in my head. And my mother was like, like, I love what you're doing. I said, Mom, this is usually the kind of conversations I'm having with myself about some of these issues. And just now I got a place to say it. So, once again, if you have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, please email me at askjelanistokes@gmail.com. And any question that you put out, I will make sure to address it on the next show. And remember, there's new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during this season 2 era. Okay. And also, if you got Twitter, you want to say hi on Twitter at Jelani Stokes. I'm there. You can say hi to me if you like. And then also, if you like, I do have a Patreon page. And if you are able to join, you will get some exclusive videos just for you. And you actually will get moved up. So if you go and join my Patreon page and you say, I want to see this video, well, guess what's going to happen? Whatever video I had coming up gets pushed down, yours gets moved all the way to the top. So, well, thank you. This is enjoyable to me because I tell my kids, I told them today, my students, I told them I love music and I love to share my knowledge with people because there's so much in this head of mine that I've just accumulated over the years. And I'm still a fairly young man, but there's so much in this mind of mine, music, not just music information and music techniques, but just history and things of that nature. And I just love sharing what I know with the masses because you know I love music and I want other people to see how much fun music can be. That's why I'm a teacher, and that's why I kind of do these things, and I get to you know just talk and get it all out of my system. So yes, so once again, got any questions? Make sure to go and send that question to askjelanistokes@gmail.com. Every video's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Check those out. If you're enjoying this, go check out my other videos. I got plenty now. Oh, you can be watching for a long time. My mother told me when I'm on the treadmill, you're on, and that gets me going. So I'm like, okay, I'll keep it going. Twitter, and then make sure, once again, I have a Patreon page. Just type in Jelani Stokes, and you will see me. And if you join my coalition, Any requests that you have go straight to the top, and I will make sure you guys know that. Okay. So, once again, this is Front Row with Jelani Stokes. And again, thank you guys for hanging out with me. And make sure to come back next week because I'm going to tell you, whoo, buddy, I have a great subject. Not going to tell you yet. Stay tuned. Great subject. But until then, you guys take care and see you soon. Remember, if you like what you're watching, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and click that notification bell so you know every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when that new video drops. All right? All right. Well, this is Jelani Stokes signing off. You guys take care. Please don't get into any trouble out there, okay? Because I know some of you, some troublemakers out there. But make sure you guys take care, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.